Welcome to the Plot Thickens, the unofficial version, the stories that happen while stories are happening. Hi, I'm Jan Faulkner, and this is the Plot Thickens, episode 13, the unofficial version. Stories are everywhere. Looking back, but not too far, or I might dislocate my neck, this week feels rather more like a potpourri than a single story. It's really a collection of little moments, each with its own flavour. Long drives, visits to the library, being Nonna's taxi to swimming lessons and football training, supporting the grandchildren with their reading challenges, making pizza dough, the obligatory cats, being a finalist in awards, noticing the ridiculously different fuel prices across the country, seeing on the screen one very smug Queen Sukie, and somewhere amongst all of that, I realised that stories really are everywhere. The week began, as many weeks seem to do at the moment, with a paintbrush in one hand and a determination to make a little more space in the house. I also discovered the delights of vintage. Shoes that had been quietly sitting in the wardrobe for years suddenly found new homes. Marketplace helped a few larger items move on, and slowly but surely the house is beginning to feel a little lighter. Then it was time to head north. I covered well over 500 miles during the week, although strangely, it never really felt like travelling. It simply felt like stepping into another rhythm. The previous week, when the grandchildren stayed with me, it was holiday mode. This week, I stepped into their world, and that meant football training, athletics camp, swimming lessons, swimming for fun, library visits, reading challenges, walking, cooking, baking, and generally fitting in with family life. It wasn't about inventing adventures. Mummy and Daddy had already done that. My job was simply to help make everything happen. I will confess, though, I missed one thing: public transport. I love buses and I love trains. Do you want to know why? Because someone else is doing all the driving. I can look out the window, watch the world go by, and simply get off when I arrive. There is no parking worries and no wondering where I left the car. It is absolute bliss. Instead, I was behind the wheel for most of the week. Mind you, there was one unexpected bonus. Fuel in Aberdeenshire was more than 14 pence a litre cheaper than back in Dumfries, so I happily filled the tank before heading south again. Small victories really count. What fascinated me, though, about this week wasn't the travelling. It was the stories. And I don't mean the stories in the books, although there were plenty of those. I mean the stories children naturally create. The library was, as always, one of our favourite places. One grandchild disappeared happily into the chapter books, devouring every word almost as quickly as the reading challenge would allow. The other was just as content, sitting quietly with picture books, reading each illustration with complete confidence. And it reminded me that stories begin long before children read every word on the page. Later in the week, we created a couple of little visual stories together. Both children had access to exactly the same bank of photographs, the same cats, the same characters, the same broad idea, even the same ending, where Sukie insists, as always, "Mother, promote my books." Everything else was entirely their own. And what fascinated me, they had exactly the same photographs in front of them, But they didn't choose the same ones. Each seemed to know instinctively what their story needed. One looked for action and drama with simple, sharp words and energetic music. The other was drawn to curiosity, choosing gentler photographs, thinking carefully about the words and finding music that suited the feeling she wanted to create. Their personalities were there in every choice. Neither copied the other. Neither tried to tell the story the right way. They simply told the story as they saw it. And watching them, I realized something. In the end, we're all storytellers. Some of us write books, some of us tell stories with pictures, some tell stories through music, and some recount them around the kitchen table over a cup of tea or coffee. We're all trying to make sense of the world in our own way. Meanwhile, Queen Sukie had a rather successful week herself. She is now officially a registered trademark, which, as far as she's concerned, merely confirms what she's always known all along. And to add to her growing sense of importance, she has also become a finalist in the Wishing Shelf Book Awards for Best Book Cover, judged by young readers. I have absolutely no doubt that she believes both achievements are entirely down to her, and of course they are. Anyway, when I rewound this week, I realized it wasn't really about the miles I'd travelled, the places I'd visited, or even the awards we celebrated. It was about the stories I found. They're in the libraries, families and everyday conversations. They're in football training, swimming lessons, curious cats, determined kittens, long drives, ridiculously different fuel prices, and pizzas made with small helping hands. But perhaps what fascinated me most was watching two little children look at the same collection of photographs and see completely different possibilities. And isn't that what we all do? We look at the world around us. We notice different things. We choose the things that matter. We decide what to leave out and what to keep in. And somewhere along the way, we create the stories we tell ourselves and others. Some of those stories are true. Some could be a load of rubbish. Some are about people we are. And some are about the people we would like to become. Perhaps we really are all storytellers. We can look at the same photographs, travel the same roads, share the same experiences, and still come away with completely different stories. And perhaps that's the joy of it. Stories are everywhere. We just have to notice them. Thank you for joining me for the Plot Thickens. Until next time, keep noticing the stories that happen while the stories are happening.